my lifestyle is completely different. In fact, when your lifestyle is changed, that's when the boredom really sets in. So why did the Three Dog Nights split up? It is rumored that the band had faced a few setbacks while they were in the business of rock and roll. Fans have been curious as to why their favorite band had to go through this split. And recently, Chuck Negron, one of its founding members, has dropped a bombshell. He has come out to the limelight to share insights as to why we had to miss the sweet melodies fans have grown accustomed to since their first music, applause, song. The band's tunes had us spellbound to their genre of music. And now that we have lost it for old time's sake, tells the sad story of why Three Dog Night had to split up early for this once favorite band. It all began with the meeting of three talented vocalists, Danny Hutton, Chuck Negron, and Corey Wells, who decided to form a band in 1967. Their beginnings were a little bloody at first, making some recordings with Brian Wilson shortly after they dropped the name Redwood in 1968. The trio hired a group of instrumentalists, including Ron Morgan on guitar, Floyd Sneed on drums, Joe Sherry from the Corey Wells Blues Band on bass, and Jimmy Greenspoon on keyboards. Sadly, the band had issues before they had even recorded their first album, as Ron Morgan left to join the Electric Prunes. They recruited Mikel Aloup to replace Morgan on the guitar, and after they took up the name Three Night, the name of the band has a fascinating history as revealed in the CD set. Celebrate the Three Dog Night story. 1965-1975, actress June Fairchild, who was Danny Hutton's lover, came up with the idea for the name. She came up with the idea after reading about Aboriginal Australians in an article. That article was pretty freaky. It claimed that people slept with their dogs to stay warm on chilly nights. Like we said, freaky. However, that story about Fairchild coming up with the name had caused some controversy. Another person has claimed it was all lies. Vanny Parks, a musician and arranger for Warner Bros. Records, revealed that he was the one who came up with the name, but the drama of the name aside, the band was determined to succeed. While there might be different accounts of who inspired the name, what we do know is when they were recording their first album, they made their official debut as Three Dog Night in 1968 during a press conference held at the Whiskey A Ogo by Dunhill Records. The group is famously known for hit tunes including Mama Told Me Not to Come and Joy to the World between 1969 and 1975. The band had 21 Billboard Top 40 hits, 3 of which peaked at number 1. They gained notoriety for recording songs by outside songwriters, which aided in popularizing the music of Hoy Axton, Paul Williams, and Randy Newman. The rise of Three Dog Night, the band became a new force on the American music industry that rose in the late 1960s. Their catchy songs, which are a unique blend of rock, pop, and soul and soaring harmonies, would come to define an entire generation's sound. And with this, they rose to fame. Three Dog Night's rise to fame was marked by their ability to interpret and popularize songs written by a diverse group of songwriters. This led to a string of hit singles and albums in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Their success was built on their distinctive harmonies and the chemistry among the three lead vocalists, Chuck Negron, Corey Wells, and Danny Hutton. The trio power came from their diverse yet complementary voices. Together, Negron's gritty blues infused baritone, Hutton's silky, soulful tenor, and Wells' explosive rock and roll swagger produced a vocal mixture that was more potent than the sum of their individual parts, with the support of a talented group of musicians that included drummer Floyd Sneed, guitarist Michael A. Loop, bassist Joe Sherry, and keyboardist Jimmy Greenspoon. Three Dog Night rose to prominence in the thriving Los Angeles music scene very fast. Their big break came in 1968, when renowned producer and music tycoon Jay Lasker signed them to ABC Dunhill Records. From there, it was a rocket ride to the top. They didn't stop when they got their big break. They rose higher when they came with their first hit single One, which was released in April 1969 and reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. The band's trademark vocal chemistry was on full display throughout the song, declaring Three Dog KN to be a significant new force in the music industry. They released a couple of songs which became chart toppers. Mama Told Me Not to Come, Joy to the World Shambhala, an old-fashioned love song, and Black and White became widely available on radio broadcasts around the nation. These songs showcase the band's ability to blend rock, pop, and soul influences into a sound that was both accessible and innovative. Apart from their hit songs, the band had another way of making audiences go crazy. They had great live performances, which increased, along with their explosive rise in fame, by the early 1970s. Three Dog Night had become one of the most popular bands in America, known for their dynamic live performances and ability to connect with fans of all generations. Three Nights turned into a concert attraction. They sold out arenas and stadiums with their intense hit-filled performances, with their voices blending and reaching amazing heights. Hutton, Negron, and Wells's on-stage chemistry was evident and sent the audience into a frenzy of devotion and excitement. In those early days, the band members' relationship seemed unbreakable both on and off stage. They were brothers, not just bandmates bound by a love of music and a will to leave their mark on the world-famous last words. These guys had no idea that the same factors that had brought them to the height of their fame would end them. So what were they? The band wasn't out of work. They had to tour constantly and to continue releasing singles, then to deal with the pressures of their work they love, the rock and roll way of life. What do we mean by the rock and roll way of life? Continue watching the video, and you'll soon see. Cracks begin. Few bands in the rock and roll world have had the kind of success that Three Dog Night has. These guys were everywhere doing everything. They were successful, and they knew it. The music industry was cutthroat, and they wanted to remain on top. It was their greatest mistake ever, as Three Dog Night continued their journey through the music industry. The strain of constant recording and touring began to take its toll on the band over the years. Like many bands, they've experienced their share of ups and downs. The band had a hiatus between 1976 and 1981, and have seen various lineup changes. Throughout the band's history, by the time they recorded their album Hard Labor in 1974, there were indications of conflict within the group. As a result, the demands of fame and the difficulties of preserving the group's dynamic caused tensions within the band. Eventually, things got worse. Recall the rock and roll life we discussed, and the group became more dependent on drugs. A heroin addiction had crept into the band members' inner circle, and their egos started to clash, and their addiction dysfunction started to worsen. Their Bond lead singers Chuck Negron and Danny Hutton of the band saw their once unbreakable friendship strain under the weight of their own demons as they fell deeper into their problems. It was conditions of the road and made the situation worse. They needed to be strong enough for the journeys, and they took more hard drugs, but it was taking a toll on their health. So in the end, the use of the drugs to induce strength in the end did more damage than. Known for their dynamic live performances and ability to connect with fans of all generations, Three Nights turned into a concert attraction. They sold out arenas and stadiums with their intense, hit-filled performances, with their voices blending and reaching amazing heights. Hutton, Negron, and Wells' on-stage chemistry was evident and sent the audience into a frenzy of devotion and excitement. In those early days, the band members' relationships seemed unbreakable, both on and off stage. They were brothers, not just bandmates bound by a love of music and a will to leave their mark on the world-famous last words. These guys had no idea that the same factors that had brought them to the height of their fame would end them. So what were they? The band wasn't out of work. They had to tour constantly and to continue releasing singles then, to deal with the pressures of their work. They love the rock and roll way of life. What do we mean by the rock and roll way of life? Continue watching the video and you'll soon see cracks. Few bands in the rock and roll world have had the kind of success that Three Dog Night has. These guys were everywhere doing everything. They were successful, and they knew it. The music industry was cutthroat, and they wanted to remain on top. It was their greatest mistake ever. As Three Dog Night continued their journey through the music industry, the strain of constant recording and touring began to take its toll on the band over the years. Like many bands, they've experienced their share of ups and downs. The band had a hiatus between 1976 and 1981 and has seen various lineup changes throughout the band's history. By the time they recorded their album Hard Labor in 1974, there were indications of conflict within the group. As a result, the demands of fame and the difficulties of preserving the group's dynamic caused tensions within the band. Eventually, things got worse. Recall the rock and roll life we discussed, and the group became more dependent on drugs. A heroin addiction had crept into the band members' inner circle, and their egos started to clash, and their addiction dysfunction started to worsen. Their Bond lead singers Chuck Negron and Danny Hutton of the band saw their once unbreakable friendship strain under the weight of their own demons as they fell deeper into their problems. It was clear they needed a break. Instead, they threw themselves more into the challenging conditions of the road and made the situation worse. They needed to be strong enough for the journeys, and they took more hard drugs, but it was taking a toll on their health. So in the end, the use of the drugs to induce strength in the end did more damage than good, with their demanding tour schedule consisting of non-stop bus journeys, smoky venues, and late-night parties. It meant they had to suffer through more damage. The same way of living that had once looked so dazzling and thrilling now felt like a cage, an endless loop of excess and tiredness. The band's once effortless chemistry started to wear thin in the recording studio as well. The pressure to release hit after hit and maintain the Three Dog Night machine at full speed caused creative tensions and arguments, and the joy and camaraderie that had once characterized their songwriting sessions gave way to annoyance and bitterness, with his heroin addiction starting to interfere with his live and recording performances. Negron, in particular, found himself at the center of the storm. His bandmates had to step in and cover for him for days as he would disappear. Without a trace, He wasn't the only victim subjected to the drug intake, but the damage he took was more apparent than the others, especially to the public. Something had to be done. Something was done, and it wasn't pretty. In an attempt, BTO preserved the close relationship of friendship and commitment that had kept Three Dog Night. As one of the greatest rock and roll bands, the band's management team took some more severe steps in an attempt to stop the addiction that was threatening to swallow the band. As a whole, they organized interventions and drove band members into rehab for Danny Hutton. He needed a full-time nurse to keep an eye on his health and enable him to continue working while traveling. Unfortunately, it was too late. However, these measures were unable to avert the inevitable. The harm had been done too far, and fractures 999,999 L. The band's foundation had grown too deep. Physical fights broke out between band members as tension spiraled into open enmity. The formerly unshakable ties of brothers had broken, and resentment and guilt had taken their place. Then, something horrible happened. This event made everything come to a halt for the group. The group lost a tangible member of the band. In 2015, Corey Wells died. Losing Corey Wells permanently changed the group dynamics and may cause cracks to show other members adjusted to the new reality while still having their own issues. Chuck Negron still dealt with his addiction, and in 1976, he reached the point of no return. His voice, which was originally powerful, had become a ragged whisper due to his out-of-control addiction alone. He faced a future that appeared gloomy and unfulfilling. Three Dog Night persisted in touring and recording throughout it all, and their music continued to be appreciated by listeners everywhere. The band splits. The once bright star of the famous band began to flicker and fade. The reason for the unexpected separation of the band remained a secret for many years, till one of its founding members, Chuck Negron, decided to speak up for the first time, sharing the little-known tale of Three Dog Night's ascent and dissolution. The band's history has been marked by its highs and lows, with their music reaching wide audiences and their songs topping the charts. However, the pressures of fame and the challenges that came with it proved to be overwhelming, leading to the eventual split. The band's final tour occurred in 1976, which turned out to be the breaking point after a show in Los Angeles' Greek Theater. The reasons behind the breakup, as we have revealed, is complex, as they dealt largely with addiction, infighting, and creative differences that eventually led to the band's dissolution. One of the lead vocalists and the band's main creative force, Danny Hutton, was let go because of his worsening drug abuse. Joe Sherry, the bassist, was also fired because he was unable to perform due to his personal battles with addiction. It was a moment of reckoning for Chuck Negron, the other main vocalist in the band. He saw the fantasy they had worked so hard to create disintegrate around him, and his once invincible band fall to rubble. The tour's last performance at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles served as a sobering reminder of the band's decline. Negron guitarist Michael Alsop and keyboardist Jimmy Greenspoon were the only three original members still active. Somewhat The magic that had enthralled audiences everywhere had dispersed to be replaced by a depressing sense of weariness. Following that last performance, Three Dog Night formally dissolved. The band did not experience a dramatic breakdown or a single point of disagreement that caused them to break up. Rather, the band gradually and agonizingly came apart due to the cumulative effect of years of excess and dysfunction, which ultimately caused the band to see collapse. Negron experienced both personal and professional destruction. As a result of Three Dog Night's dissolution, he had given the band his entire being, giving up everything for the love of the music. His life was ravaged by addiction, and his once promising profession was in ruins. He now found himself adrift, looking back on Three Dog Night's dissolution. Negron realizes that a perfect storm of events came together to pull the band apart rather than any one reason being the cause of their destruction. It wasn't just the drugs, he remarks. It was the lifestyle, the constant touring, the pressure to keep churning out hits. He continues, "We were young and naive, and we didn't know how to handle it all. We thought we were invincible, but in the end, we were just human." Negron also acknowledges that bad leadership played a part in the band's demise. He depicts a culture of exploitation and selfishness, where record labels and management pushed the band to the breaking point in an attempt to increase revenues at all costs. Negron has talked about these issues in a number of interviews, and even goes into detail about them in his autobiography, Three Dog Nightmare, which offers an honest look at the band's as well as the difficulties that ensued. Despite the breakup, the band members reunited 5 years later, and Three Night's second iteration has lasted over 40 years, with various lineup changes and legal disputes. Along the way, they continue to perform and share their music, maintaining a connection with their fans and preserving their legacy in rock history. The implications of their breakup. After the breakup of Three Dog Night in 1976, the band members pursued various individual projects and dealt with personal challenges. The aftermath of the breakup was a period of reflection and growth for the members. Chuck Negron, one of the original vocalists, who struggled with drug addiction, but eventually overcame it and became a spokesperson for drug recovery programs. He also released several solo albums and wrote a book about his experiences. Danny Hutton, another founding member, focused on producing music for other artists, and also worked in A&R artists and repertoire for record companies. Corey Well continued to perform in smaller venues and also took part in reunion tours with the band until his passing in 2015. The band itself, after reuniting in 1981, continued to tour and perform with various lineup changes over the years. They have maintained a loyal fan base and continue to celebrate their legacy by performing their classic hits. The journey of Three Dog Night is a story of resilience and enduring appeal of their music, as well as the personal strength of the band members in navigating the challenges that followed their initial breakup. Their story is one of triumph over adversity, and their music continues to resonate with audiences around the world. Chuck Negron was left adrift after Three Dog Night broke up his life, pulled apart by the twin evils of hopelessness and addiction. He battled for years to return to the light. His once promising career, now only a faint memory, despite his lowest points. Negron never lost sight of music's ability to alter and heal. His belief served as a lifeline for him, enabling him to escape the abyss and return to the realm of the living. It was a torturous and long trip, filled with innumerable false starts and disappointments. Negron repeatedly checked himself into recovery, but he kept coming back. He was living on the streets of Los Angeles when he reached his lowest point, his once powerful voice reduced to a hoarse whisper. Negron persisted nonetheless, never giving up. He was aware that his gift was still dormant inside of him, only waiting to be rekindled. He battled to recover his life and his music, day in and day out. Rebuilding in Negron happened gradually but steadily, so he did something incredible for himself. He sobered up, tied the knot, and began a family. This not only stabilized him, but also added the harmony love he seemed to have lost with his band. After this self-healing, he did the most incredible thing. It was after his recovery that he made contact with his old bandmates, again repairing the rifts in their friendship that had previously been irreparable. It was during this time that they came back to the limelight, as if they had never left. The band came with such powerful vocal and immersing beats that made us remember just how much we have loved them. He started to sing again, his voice rising like a phoenix from the ashes, claiming its place in the music industry. You wouldn't believe he would be able to do so after the damage he seemed to have caused. His voice, in the past years, through his addiction, his personal experiences, served as a cautionary tale and a message of hope, and he made solo albums, went on national tours, and told his story to audiences all over the world. Turning back time to the very beginning, we get to relate to their rise and fall through the years. We also can recognize the lessons that can be learned from their success journey and life ideas, the importance of balance and self-care, the need for support and community in the face of adversity, and love for brotherhood. Negron is like the superhero and the band's band-aid that sticks them all together, even after all adversities that ultimately led to their breakup. He realizes is their vocal legacy and how much it has touched their fans and audience. So what do you think about Negron and the band's journey? What do you think about his addiction, the band's difficulties, and what Negron mentioned about the exploitation? Let's have your comments in the comment area below. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amusing videos of your favorite bands and musicians.